Hey A&Pers, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is A&P II Lab 4. We're on video 1, so we're starting in the urinary system. This is a kidney. So the term for kidney is renal, and we're going to have the renal word a whole lot on this model. So first let's start superficial. This is the fibrous capsule. Because the kidneys are retroperitoneal, they are behind the peritoneal cavity. This is not a serosa, this is not visceral peritoneum, this is a fibrous connective tissue capsule, so fibrous capsule. The hilum is the same as the hilum in the lungs, hilum or hilus, the same term, works the same way. And this is where all the plumbing goes in and out of the kidneys. The renal sinus are these yellow parts in here with the blood vessels in them. Renal sinus, renal sinus, renal sinus. Let's see, the ureter is the tube. Of course, the kidneys filter the blood to make urine, and the ureter is the tube that carries that to the urinary bladder. And I have that model right over here. There we go. So you've got the kidneys make urine, ureters carry that to the urinary bladder, and you can see where they go in. And there's the little hole where the urine goes into the urinary bladder. And then you'll have the urethra where it leaves the body, but we'll get to that. So, for now, the kidney. Fibrous capsule, hilum for the plumbing, sinus for the blood vessels, and ureter. Okay, so we were at renal cortex, and the renal cortex is the outer area of the kidney. On this model, which is one of these, we've got the fibrous capsule and the renal cortex. So that's this part. And then we have the renal medulla. The renal medulla is the inside. And this is a little like the adrenal gland that has the adrenal cortex on the outside edge, and the adrenal medulla is the squishy gooey filling. This is the renal medulla of the kidney. And the renal medulla has two major parts, and these are the renal pyramids, which are pyramidal. And of course, when a pyramid is cut here, it looks like a triangle. So these are the renal pyramids. And they end at points called the renal papilla. This is a renal pyramid, which of course is part of the renal medulla, and it ends at a point, which is the papilla. Now, in between the renal pyramids, which you can't see on this model, are the renal columns, and those are in between the pyramids. What else do we need? So the renal papilla, urine comes out of the renal papilla into a minor calyx. So each of these are minor calyces. So calyx is the singular, C-A-L-Y-X. Calyces is the plural, and that's C-A-L-I-C-E-S. So this time when the X went plural, it turned into a C instead of a G. So when two or more minor calyces get together, you have a major calyx. All the major calyces get together, you have the renal pelvis, and that feeds urine into the ureter. Moving on to the rest of the candy corn model. What, it looks like a candy corn. Okay. So again, we said this was the fibrous capsule, the renal cortex. This is a renal pyramid, which we know is part of the renal medulla. And we have different types of nephrons here. So each of these pearls is going to represent an entire nephron, but only on two of them are the rest of the nephrons shown. Because the nephrons go three-dimensionally around these pearls, you can't show all of them at the same time. So the pearls are representing an entire nephron. A nephron is the functional unit of the kidney. That's the part that technically filters the blood and makes the filtrate into urine. So these superficial ones are all cortical nephrons. They're further into the cortex. They have a shorter loop, so they make a less concentrated urine. And that'll be 2, 4, 6, 8 cortical nephrons on this model. And then the deeper ones, the ones that are just next to the medulla, are the juxtamedullary nephrons. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 juxtamedullary nephrons on this model. So the renal corpuscle is the pearl part of the nephron. So all of these are renal corpuscles. And on this one, these two, the renal corpuscles are dissected out so that you can see what's inside them. So the knot of capillaries inside the fruit here, hanging off the tree, see the tree? So there's the fruit hanging off the tree, is a knot of capillaries, and that's the glomerulus. Glomerulus. And then the candy coating of the M&M here is the Bowman's capsule, is the older term. The newer term is glomerular capsule. The first bit of tube that comes off of the renal corpuscle is the proximal convoluted tubule. And then we go to the nephron loop and the distal convoluted tubule. And then from here to here is a connecting tubule. And then we have a collecting duct until we get to the papilla of the renal pyramid, and then we will call it the papillary duct. And the papillary duct ends up being very important physiologically because it is permeable to urea. Now, I have another version of this model that's the exact same thing except in like 80s neon abstract. Yeah, you heard that right. Ta-da! Okay, yeah, I know. We'll go through it. Okay, this is A, bigger, B, heavier, and C, 80s neon. Okay, I'm gonna have to zoom out. That's not out, sorry. Okay, that is zoomed out. Okay, so this will be our renal cortex. Scooching. And this will be our pyramid, the renal medulla. So each of these pearls is representing a nephron. These bottom two will be our juxtamedullary nephrons because they're just next to the medulla. And these top four will be our cortical nephrons because they're more superficial, they're in the cortex. So let's follow this cortical nephron. So the pearl part of the nephron is the renal corpuscle, and none of these are dissected open to see the glomerulus or the glomerular capsule. But we can see the proximal convoluted tubule here, and it's the orange bit. And then we see it leads to the nephron loop, and this nephron loop is entirely in the cortex, which is part of why these superficial ones are called cortical nephrons. And then we change colors here in the loop, and you can see the distal convoluted tubule is a different color, kind of a gray. And then we've got a yellow connecting tubule, and then two big long yellow collecting ducts. And when I say ducts, I'm saying D-U-C-T-S, not D-U-C-K-S, because we're talking about tubes, not waterfowl. And then where they come together at the bottom, we can call that the papillary duct. So this crazy thing and the candy corn are the same thing, except different artistic rendition. So that was page 29. So this has been A&P II Lab 4, Video 1. The education must go on. Dr. J out.